And then you pushed it down and you gotta let it do it by itself.
But prior to that, it was
Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to Sector 67 if you've never been here before. We do these monthly meetings. It's like a 7-minute show and tell. So people give talks on projects or things they're working on or otherwise for 7 minutes, and then you can ask them questions, hopefully hard questions, especially for Marcus here. And then we'll kind of go from there. I think we have 4 or 5 people to present, and then at the very end you can go around and say who you are or what you're interested in or otherwise, and go from there. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Marcus, who's going to talk to us about swimming.
Yeah, so this is a underwater recording system intended for a coach. So this part goes underwater, you have a live preview, and it's intended to do like a swim stroke analysis. And I applied with this idea at MatWorks, which is a startup accelerator. So they take you from wherever you are and accelerate you to a different place. With focus on like board governance. So what kind of boards are there, how they run, and that sort of thing. So they won't do the product for you, but they'll give you a little structure around it. The application for the next board is open. They expect you to put about 20 hours a week in there. You meet twice a week. And upon successful graduation, you get $5,000 with no strings attached, almost no strings attached. You have to fill out a report once a quarter. So I graduated with this version of the device, and it's actually good enough to hang around. It's a little awkward to hold, but So right now it's playing back a clip in a loop that I've recorded a couple days ago. So the presentation I have is the identical one I gave during the graduation. And I was actually wearing clean clothes. I just changed the tires in the car. And so there was actually a room full of people that was attending. This presentation is not necessarily very technical, but should give you an idea, how like a MatWorks graduation presentation looks like. So, about me, I'm an electrical engineer. I own Soft Element LLC, and I've been doing this video stuff and programming for quite some time. The problem with swimming, it is, to do it efficiently is actually pretty hard. Teaching swimming is also pretty hard. And, making a video of it is actually also surprisingly hard. And there aren't very many good, affordable coaching tools. So I have developed a handheld, battery-powered device that allows poolside recording, and you can review the recording right next to the pool, and you can give the swimmer corrective measures for the stroke. This is a little bit about the business. So there are roughly 650,000 swimmers, 20,000 swim teams, and they're organized in various different entities. Actually, almost more interesting financially, or if you look at disposable income, is actually triathletes. There are almost as many triathletes as swimmers. There's probably some overlap. And they do spend around $20 billion a year. And $2,000 of that, is basically spent on running and swimming. So a fairly large amount of money. The business model for the device, hardware sales, it could be also like a per analysis fee and an annual maintenance fee for the device. Like 2 simulations. If I capture 10% of the swimmers, we charge $100 per analysis. It comes about to $3.6 million. And a simulation on the high side, where I capture 20% of the swimmers and do quarterly stroke analysis, it comes roughly out to about $30 million. So not a huge market. The marketing strategy is advertising, who doesn't want to swim faster and more efficiently. You get a timely and iterative swim stroke analysis. And then for marketing purposes, I would create videos on social media where I would show people swimming before and after stroke analysis. Success stories where people say, hey, I shaved off a second from a 50, or I swam the Ironman loop 10 minutes faster. I also do commercials, and then I would go to trade shows for swim coaches. I did create an advisory board. It's very interesting to put a bunch of smart people in a room and make them talk to get lots of good feedback. The product status, so what you see there is the 5th generation prototype, and I have manufactured it, I have optimized it for manufacturability. So fewer 3D printed parts, largely standard PVC fittings. I have tested the device in the pool multiple times, and I also verified the workflow. Moving forward, I'm going to take a step back, do some market research. I'll find out pricing, detailed projections. I work at a cloud implementation where the videos are hosted somewhere on the internet. And I enable the coach to do create a lesson poolside. So where the swimmer and the coach looks at the video and basically talks about what can be improved, and I would record the coach's voice. Moving forward, I'm looking for an additional developer, and I want to add sales and marketing staff. I did create a little video, and I'm going to show this is like a 30-second commercial. There's the voiceover. We may not have audio, but I can just. So you basically see how I use the device.
Scott, if you're around here quick, you can make a lot of money with that.
Run. So this was the MatWorks graduation presentation. So if you have an idea, if you're in a startup and you're looking for a little bit of structure and some cash, and you can afford to take half a day off during the week, I highly encourage everybody to apply. They accepted me, so the bar can't be very high. Okay, thanks.
Questions?
Good.
You had when you were holding your thing over your head, that looked really awkward and like hard to walk next to the pool and not fall in and all that.
Yeah.
Have you put any thought into like an articulation or any sort of a swivel head or anything like that?
Yeah, I have thought about it. The thing is, it needs to be waterproof.
Yeah.
There's a wire running in there, so as soon as you add a joint, the waterproofing gets really hard. And if you articulate something with a wire in between, it also gets hard. Yeah, it is a little awkward. Probably what I would do is create some sort of dolly where this thing just gets mounted on and just wheel it down next to the pool. But basically the goal is to have a self-contained device that is reliable and waterproof, and adding any sort of joint makes it hard.
Yeah. And is that waterproof like drop it in the water or just from so far down?
So the actual only waterproof part is from here down. And we thought about it, the team did also make this box waterproof, which is probably not super hard, but it's just another thing to do. And I'm also using like a sort of off-the-shelf, mobile charger kind of battery, called a power bank. Frees me from creating a battery pack or doing a charger or any of those things. So you can just buy one of those, and they're $20 on Amazon. And I have actually a fairly long-lasting battery for something like 8 hours. So battery consumption of this is actually fairly small. I never thought it was. Go ahead.
I see that thing kind of resting on my hip out in the water. With a handle.
Yeah.
It's in the water, and I'm looking sort of between the, right in the middle, like, so I can see forward, I can see the swimmer, I can see the video. So the handle and the video's off. Maybe to the left of the, you know, of the swimmer, so you're not going to walk into the pool.
And it will eventually happen.
The swimmer can still see where you're going on this line here. And the whole thing is resting on your hip, but keep the whole thing pretty straight.
Yeah, I mean, I could do this right now, walk like this, and then, you know, take a peek on the
If that came
monitor.
over and have the video up higher.
Yeah, so there's definitely room for improvement on the ergonomics. You know, the question is, can I do all the various angles with just one device? So it may be a compromise I have to do, but yeah, it still kind of looks awkward. But you know, this mimics sort of a metal detector form crutch, and actually allows you to put a fair amount of torque on this sliding into the water.
Yeah, that's what I think, kind of got that metal detector thing, but.
Actually, yeah.
You're trying to be stable, and so a third, you know, the third, your hip and the third point, that makes it very stable.
Yeah, so
And it's not putting
like a,
strain.
like a steady kind of thing where it's one, yeah.
I would think that driving customers to actually purchase like the product. I'm wondering if you thought about what to do in a gator issue, because there's huge pressure for doing athletic, especially at team involved in competition. And you may want to sort of work with the free device equipment to one group. And if they start to see success, I guarantee you everybody else who played the team is going to that water.
Oh, no, I mean, it's a great idea. You know, if devices involved, or there is somebody saying, you know, I dropped the second to 50, and, you know, I want to see or something, that would definitely very good. But, you know, I haven't really spent, I haven't spent very little time on marketing or business model for any person. I don't even have a name for it. So definitely room for it.
Just one thing. The second thing the reason for the trying to, if you're going to be using this for over half an hour or longer, just the use of repetitive, having to carry that, just kind of like vacuum cleaners now. They all have this stupid handle, and that makes it supposed to be easy. It's not easy. I get rid of that thing.
You know, actually what you really have to do is swimmer jumps in, comes up, and so you're capturing, you know, 15 yards, and depending on how fast you swim, there's actually only like 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah. If you're doing that like for 6 to 8 hours or something, one swimmer after another.
Right, so I mean, if you're like in a larger university team and everybody lines up for stroke analysis, then I can see
It's
this.
going to be the same person moving.
Last question. Are you selling this as a product or a service or both?
Probably a combination of both.
Just on that note, I mean, have you thought about shoulder strap to the pivot point? So that
Yeah, so basically if you could just let go of it and it just hangs around you, and have the center of gravity somewhere that, you know, align is the strap.
you got a float on it too. Maybe we could, it would be a steady depth or whatever.
Yeah, actually another idea would be to put some sort of like around here that has positive flotation. Already, actually, this contains quite a bit of air, so you can feel a little bit of a relief when you put this down on the line. Yeah, it's really-
As far as alternate markets, I don't know if that's of interest yet in your business model, but they use a lot of similar devices to like sweep cars going into, you know, whatever, you know, military checkpoints and such, so.
Yeah, like go, turn it around.
Yeah.
and go around.
Double duty, weekend work versus.
Jim?
Do you know when the next network accelerator is?
Yeah, actually I do. So right now, it is open to apply, so they're gonna recruit the entire month of May, and then the next accelerator starts in June.
So Mavericks is on competition.
Come again?
I thought there was a competition this time
What do you mean by competition?
around. How many people were in it?
Oh, actually, this time they started with 5 or 6, and they dropped down to 3. There were some health reasons and scheduling issues and whatnot, and I think they had 40 applicants. Again, I mean, you have to have the time to do it, so if you work full-time, you can't take half a day off, Monday or Tuesday, then it doesn't work, but you can form a team, and then, you know, each team member, could show up there for a few hours. And again, it does come, I actually learned a ton, you know. I know how to write software, and I got some help with 3D printing. But, you know, I had no idea about boards, and what kind of boards exist, how those boards are run. And so I did learn a lot in a very short time.
So Mavericks is on campus too, so that wasn't clear. So it's on UW campus, so it's not far or anything. But they do this. What's that?
Study.
Oh, it's on study block. Okay. So they do this program twice a year, I think. 3 or 4 times a year now. All right, they've increased it. And then each person, like Marcus said, is $5,000 that you get when you complete the program, and he showed you what you have to do to complete the program, which is come to these weekly sessions and then show progress on your idea, and then ultimately just give a presentation on sort of where you started, where you're at, and what you're heading towards. So it's not a difficult project, and you get $5,000 for free. So it's not a bad pay rate when you look at the time that goes into it.
I would have paid $2,000, so essentially I got $7,000.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Davey, Sean? These guys don't know this. This is great. They found out 5 minutes ago. Marcus, I'm still on your computer.
How about Jim? Jim gets a free pass on this?
Jim does not get a free pass. I forgot about Jim. Nice job out him. That's perfect. That's just what we needed.
I don't fall under the bus easily by myself.
You guys got to start while I pull the
All right.
pictures, so.
So we went to
Let's
Detroit,
separate.
and we cut a bunch of pieces of metal for high school kids. There's a robotics competition in Detroit. There's a world competition for first robotics challenge? Or is that just the part of it?
First robotics.
First robotics. So high school kids from all over the world actually showed up, and they had a robot that was broken last time they touched it, or in competition last time they touched it. And so we had a couple of days of like pit work, and then a couple of days of, very well, it all kind of overlapped. And they had like time trials or what have you to place, and then they had the final competition after we left.
Yeah, so every team that makes it to the world was at a regional somewhere in their local area, and as soon as they're done with that competition, they have to bag their robot. And it's a weighed thing, and it basically bagged and tagged. They don't get to touch it or open it. It's got to get shipped directly to the championship. So their robot could have broken in the last, battle they were in, and now they have to fix it. So there was a kind of a first initial rush of like, hey, we got to get our things back up and running, and then there's a lot of time trials and getting people's. The way it works is that there are multiple robots are on the same team that compete against another set of 3. And I think the initial set timing was they were working together to kind of get their ranking and see who's actually.
Yes, they do a series of 2 days of qualifying rounds.
Yeah.
So the teams are partnered at random. So occasionally the team that you're partnered with will be your competitor on the next round. So you'll literally be working cooperatively with a robot, and then on the next round you might be against that robot in the same contest. And then they'll do, I forget how they do the rank tier to seed up the highest teams. And the top seeded teams get to pick their partners for the final round, and then they do the actual final competition. So the teams have like 3 days of competing, and then a final round that determines who's the world champion in the robot competition. And every year the course changes, so each year the team doesn't know what they have to build the robot to do. And I think it's about an 8-week development cycle. It's pretty short. So the course gets released, they have 8 weeks to build a machine to do the objectives, and then they have to go and start doing competitions. And then, like they said, whenever the last contest finishes, they have to close this thing up, put it in a crate, ship it to this contest, and they don't get to open it until they get there, which means they run to us to get help fixing things. They're limited on the amount of weight they can bring into the pits, and they're limited on the amount of weight that their machine can weigh. So they can't just bring like a whole trailer if they're local to Detroit. And then the team that flies in from Japan can't, bring very much, and so they try to make it even for all the teams. They can only bring in certain things. Jim, do you want to grab the robot that our kids built? It's over there by the desk.
And for reference, I got to look at the competition for a few seconds, and they had this is purely my assumption of what they were doing just by watching them, but they were picking up the orange balls. We kept measuring at 18 inches or whatever diameter, 13. They had to pick up some amount of these balls and put them into a basket about so high off the ground, and they had to do that as many times as they could. There was a disc, a plastic disc. It was so big with a hole in the middle. And they had to retrieve that. The teammate would put it in a slot. They would retrieve that and then Velcro it to a pole or to a, rocket. And the higher up they Velcroed it, the more points they got.
And then pass this around.
Yeah, drive it around. Just bring that up here.
And then once the bell rang, they had to climb the steps. And if they got to like the top, there was 2 or 3 steps. And if they could get all the way top, then they got more points.
And that was probably one of the coolest parts of the competition is that these robots were designed to basically climb stairs. And you can really see like the part of what Fish Robotics is to teach kids engineering and science and how to just manipulate the material world. But I think there's also sort of a subversive quality for teaching the next generation of engineers to develop tools for good and bad purposes. For example, I don't want to go too far, but some of that climb the stairs would be really useful in a rescue situation where you don't want to send a human into a dangerous place. Whereas if you can send a robot that can actively climb the stairs, that's a big, currently a fairly large step.
Yeah, so this contest, this robot is for the first tech challenge, which is one of the steps towards first robotics competition. So some of the teams that we were supporting have budgets of upwards of $50,000 a year that they spend on this contest, and some higher than that, some a lot lower than that. This contest we do for on the order of about $1,000 a year, and the kids build all of the machine and figure out all the parts and determine what they want to do. But this is a different competition, the same type of series with a little bit simpler of a build. But we have high school kids from East High that we support who come over and work on building the robot, and then we take them up to the contest up in Hortonville, kind of near La Crosse, or not near La Crosse, ish, up north somewhere. There's a contest in Milwaukee, but there's way too many teams for it, so we never get a spot in that one because it's too competitive to try and get, because it's a slightly later competition. Yeah. So, in short though, the other thing that FIRST does is they try to make this like a sporting event. So this is the stadium in Detroit. It's like a full-on stadium. They bring them to Ford Field to do the final round. So you're talking tens of thousands of people. I think I got the statistics, it was like 40,000 students were there over the course of the event. Their people were there over the course of the event. And then there's over 400 teams, or 500 teams, and I think we did about 400 documented jobs alone over the course of 4 days. So that means that you have teams on the order of every minute standing in line waiting to get help with us doing something. A lot of the things are cutting something apart, and then sometimes they come back and ask us to weld it back together again. But more often than not, it's just cutting up material and drilling holes and fixing things. And I got to weld together the team who came up here from Chile. So they literally brought their robot, brought their 8 team members. They were here for the event, and they were headed straight back home. I asked them what their trip looked like, and they said they fly from Santiago up to Dallas, Dallas to Chicago, and then they drive from Chicago up to Detroit. They said as soon as the contest finishes, they drive back to Chicago, and they're back to Dallas and back to Santiago. And so that's part of what they do. But the robot was broken, and we needed to weld it back together again and hopefully not screw it up. And as far as I know, it worked good after that. So,
yeah, we had kind of a wide range of projects from like, here, cut this here, 18 inches off of this piece, to Sean spent a couple hours on the mini lathe. Like, making who knows what. Just
Yeah.
somebody had a napkin with a really specific drawing on it that said like, carve this here, and this has to have such and such a hole in it. And so there's kind of a variety of stuff, which is pretty cool.
And the people that aren't here, there's Tormach is who sponsors us being able to go there. They pay for the hotel and the fuel and other things. We partner with them, so they bring their CNC machines and we bring the rest of the workshop. And then Coma is local to Detroit. They're one of the big, they support the big three automotive manufacturers. They bring 2 semi-trailers full of full-size machine tools. And then they have 5 employees that work there for 4 days. Those guys are masters at avoiding work, but they do help a lot. They get a lot of the pickier jobs or the things that their machines are much bigger for. Because they have a semi, they can haul full-size equipment that we can't bring with us. We bring smaller stuff. And so it ends up being a pretty good balance of the things that they can do and the things that we can do to help with. So it ends up being pretty fun. And then we had 2 guys. One was Gary Klein, who owned Klein Bicycles. So he likes to go to these first events, and they do the whole northwestern part of the U.S. Machine shops for that. He volunteers and runs them. And then we also had he was a machinist from NASA who used to go to Houston and support NASA, but he's since retired from NASA, and so now he's sort of a free agent. But NASA won't let him, for insurance reasons, help in their machine shop anymore. So he instead goes around the country and travels to these events on his cost, just to have some fun and help out. So we have an interesting team of people that are there to help and make stuff go. Any questions at all?
And one more thing to point out, which was there was a poster that I thought really typified this whole event for me. And it was written by the guy, whoever the guy that made this, that invented first or started it or whatever. And it said, "We don't use kids to build robots, we use robots to build kids." And I just thought that was like, it really sunk it in for me.
Yeah, because it's a very different competition. There's a term that first likes to use called cooperation. So it's not competition, it's not cooperation, it's hybrid. And the way the event is really organized, like Chris was saying, you might be on a team, and then the next round you're against that team. And so it teaches, and people are really, there's the whole culture of sharing. And like when we were up in Ortonville, we didn't have the proper shut-off switch that was separate from the shut-off switch on the main power supply, and they weren't going to let us compete. And basically, somebody heard that and said, "Oh, hey, we have that same, module, and we can cut." And then we just spent, Chris cut and pasted some wires together and made it work. But there's a really neat understanding that everyone's here to kind of work together, even though you're competing, you're also cooperating.
I was walking the pits here in Detroit, and they had a will call. And then
Yeah.
every hour on the radio, they'd be like, over the PA, they'd like, "Hey, team 7562 needs a 22 microfarad capacitor," or whatever, some part, or a wheel, or a drill with such and such drill bit. And so I just thought that was cool that they really facilitated that.
Yeah, what's interesting is when the teams are swapping parts, those parts are like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's a $200 motor. Yeah, just go use it. If you guys need it, it's fine. So it was interesting to see what they were doing to help the kids, and the kids were having fun. So
The robots are also
yeah, they're a lot bigger.
like this big. Like this is the second stage, and we were doing a lot of the third stage stuff, where it was 3 foot square this tall.
Questions? Aaron?
So what's the standard duration to skip the line when you guys fix the robot?
Politeness.
Thank you. Please. Yeah, because
Mark was telling me there's an app called Cut the Line that you guys
So we'll do next year. You can come with. So the other thing too is it's just volunteers who come along. So if anybody wants to come and help, you're welcome to. We go and do the lacrosse competition, and we go and do the Detroit competition. So you have to get yourself there, and then First covers the hotel and Tormach pays for food and whatnot that First isn't covering. So it's a good amount of help to go there and do it. It's always fun and entertaining. We were expecting to be bored because lacrosse was really slow, and we were not bored, so it was good. Plenty of work to do. Any other questions? Cool. We'll applaud for ourselves. Uh-oh, part fell off. We'll have to fix it for next year.
I got a machine shop. We made this on.
I did, yeah, I'm good with that. You can roll your bike back out, it's fine. Adam, you're up next.
November, when I gave this presentation first, before I started the project, I didn't have the bike here. But this time I don't have five. So if you're not, put up and look it up on the screen.
I don't know if we should put it on a glass table. Maybe a bad plan.
What could go wrong?
It'll be fun.
Okay. Sure table. So this is called a velomobile. When I'm talking about it to people with cars, I call it a car with pedals. When I'm talking to bicyclists about it, I call it a bike with a body. There are several brands and several different models manufactured around the world, none in the U.S. This one was made in the Netherlands, and this particular model, the Quest, there's been over 1,000 of this model built. They're all over the world. 3 of them are even in Wisconsin. I bought this one used from a guy in Green Bay. It was built about 10 years ago. The design is about 20 years old. And so when I got it, it had a 10-year-old lighting system. Really lame, incandescent turn signals, an extremely lame LED headlight, which I kept, but supplemented with a good one, a 10-watt motorcycle headlight, and then put in all the wiring to make turn signals, hazards, running lights. So, and then I also kept the original horn. Everything was 6 volt. That was the other thing that was kind of lame. So I got I wired it. I got all 12 volt components, and the old 6 volt components, I just, I'm just putting 12 volts through them. So the horn's a little louder. The light, light is a little brighter, and everything else I replaced. So this is the battery I'm using now. I don't recommend it. When you buy stuff on Amazon, the word overrated really applies here. It really doesn't begin to describe the disappointment you get from 30, a battery that should be 30 watt hours and turns out to be only 20. The difference is, so the biggest draw on the whole electrical system is the motorcycle headlight, 10 watts. I thought it would run it for 3 hours. It only runs it for about 2 hours. Everything else in the whole system would run for a week on this battery. So I'm looking at getting a better battery for this. Just yesterday, or 2 days ago, somebody showed me one of those car starter batteries. Lulu was the brand of his, and I do not think those are overrated. I think they are. They're rated for 10,000 milliamp hours, which would run this for 10 hours. Yeah. So turn that one down, and so here's my demo. Hazard lights, running lights, left turn signal, right turn signal, right and left, and headlight. This headlight is bright. Yeah. But if you go down the road, this thing goes fast. I can get up to 30 miles an hour really easy, and I overrun this light. I really could use either another light that was pointed further down, or a brighter one. But this will do for now. There is a tail light. I had help from a couple of members here. It sounds like little things, but Casey made me a little. I was running around looking through the garbage for something I could use to mount a button switch for the tail light, or for the brake light. There's a single LED in the back that comes on for the brake light. Casey looked at what I pulled out of the garbage and he said, well, I could make you something that would work better than that in 10 minutes, and he did. So a little bottle cap shaped thing here on the handlebar that holds the reverse light. And then Jim Rasmussen made this case for I had, when I got these LEDs, which are from Northern, nothing fancy here, I took one of those clear plastic cases that you get vinyl tape in, and that was what I made the taillight from. And I didn't
want to take it apart, so Jim made me a 3D printed ring to go around it, and then a case to mate it to the shape of the tail. That's it. That's the end of my demo. Pretty cool, huh?
What are you doing? How much does it cost for a ride after the meeting? That's the real question.
Well, my offhand answer is you couldn't pay me enough, but,
That's probably the right answer.
You're welcome to try. Marcus also helped me out with a lot of stuff. One thing I did, maybe you all knew this, but I didn't know how to wire turn signals and running lights together so that they didn't backfeed to each other. And the guys here helped me get a couple of diodes. The coolest thing about working here is that, before I came here, I was looking for diodes all over the place. Radio Shack doesn't create components anymore. There isn't one in Madison. I was in here one night, and I looked across the table at the gym, and I said, where would I get a diode? He said, well, you reach through that shelf behind you and wave your hand at Nate, he'll hand you a couple. And so that's, I was working on this at a bike shop, in the basement of a bike shop before. The guy was pretty helpful, but it was nothing like being here. So thank you to everyone who helped. I needed a lot. My background is aerospace engineering and aerodynamics. I'm not much of a hardware guy. Yes, Mark?
So if you're like at a 7% grade, how fast will this thing go?
About 45 miles an hour. 7% grade is a lot. It'll go 25, yeah. On level ground with just, a no sweat output, it'll go 20 miles an hour. So, and people ask me how fast it goes. I tell them I average 15 miles an hour in the city, 20 highway. Yeah.
Have you ever run into anything at 25 miles an hour?
You'd be able to tell.
Yeah.
No.
I have on a bike.
Yeah, okay. If I do on this, I'm much better protected. The skin that comes off is not going to be my own. I have done that. So the fairing gives you a lot. It's weather protection, it's crash protection. The closest I've come to crashing was when I was backing up off of a curb. I thought it was a ramp, and there's a keel on here that the chain runs through. It's really rigid because apparently people hit it a lot, but I got high centered on it and things started to roll to the side. I managed to catch it, and it did it in front of somebody. Yeah.
What does that weigh?
About 70 pounds. I'm really glad that I found this battery that's so light, this useless lightweight battery. But, the battery I had before was like 2 pounds, huge, couldn't find a place to put it. So. Yeah.
There's like a hood for it.
I do have, I have a couple of different ones. This is the kayak cover. This is what I carry around to just, so I can ride it. This comes off the Velcro. I can ride it with just my head sticking out. And if it's snowing lightly or raining lightly, this is just fine. And then when I park it, keep the birds from shitting in it. I put this on here, and then there's a piece of Velcro that I have to glue on there. And then there's another rain hood that goes completely over the top. It's like a $600 carbon fiber thing. It's manufactured by a Dutch company also, and that's really cool. It also adds about 5 miles an hour. So yeah, this will be my year-round car. It was here in the shop all winter, so I didn't get to ride it in the snow. The only real big concern I have about riding this in the snow is that when I come to a corner where the snowbanks are piled up this high, I can't see anything, and the nose is sticking out this far into the intersection before I can tell if anybody's coming. However, I've been riding things like this for about 30 years. There is something to say for having experience. Just to say, I have not had a serious crash in any of the rigs.
Let's put a little video in there so that.
Oh, dash cam? Yeah. Oh, that would be a great idea. Yeah. One thing I should mention too is that as soon as I came in here, especially Marcus, said oh, you got to have a a 3-wire signaling bus and transponders on every component, and you can just do this with a Raspberry Pi board. Marcus could. I couldn't. So I just did all discrete wires to discrete components, and that kept the cost down too. It was about probably I had some false starts, but the components I ended up putting in here cost less than $100. Yeah.
It seems like it's longer than it might need to be. Is that just for the aerodynamic shape? It's for the trunk so you can store your groceries. Oh,
yeah. There's quite a bit of cargo space.
Oh,
I could do a 2-week camping trip and not have to lash anything on the outside of it. Yes, it is primarily for the fairing because your feet stop about here. If you just had a flat plate on here, it would not go 10 miles an hour. And then the back wheel only stops about here. So there's a little bit extra. There's another version of it called the Mango that is a lot shorter. It's for people who have trouble finding space for things. I should mention that I don't have a garage. I have a very understanding girlfriend who lets me keep it in our living room. It is the most expensive piece of furniture in our house, but also one of the most comfortable.
Never win an argument with that.
What's that?
You never win an argument, do you?
Anyway, so my next project is going to be woodworking. We had a bunch of we had a white pine taken down on our property and milled into lumber, and we'll be making that into a double bed, things like that. Yeah.
So what's your city and highway mileage on a regular bike? Just so I have a comparison.
I'm 60 years old. It's certainly not as, it gets worse every week.
Okay.
But on this one, I always seem to be able to keep up good speed.
You say you ride it out in the winter too?
Yeah. Yeah. When I got it, it came with a set of studded tires.
You think the white is dangerous?
Camouflage.
It starts moving.
Yeah, well, I have other ways to get noticed.
You need a little video camera in the front that looks both ways.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
See if you get Marcus's first version of his prototype.
Yeah, I'll look through your scrap one. The thing is, anything you put on the outside of this does slow it down remarkably. Everybody asks me why I don't have a 6-foot high visibility flag. That's because it would have more drag than the entire rest of the vehicle. It would slow down my average speed to 10 miles an hour. I'm an aerodynamicist. I know these things. I'm not going to put up with that crap. Drivers are responsible for not running into other.
Those veneers look like
There's a lot of expressness there.
You could train your pet bird to fly above you.
Well, I have a drone following drone. One thing that the guy before me, the reason he put this Velcro up was he would put a red flashing beacon on top of that, which does help with visibility. He rode it quite a bit. He lived in Green Bay. He would ride it in the wintertime, 16 miles each way to work. He finally, his hips gave out, so he had to sell it.
All right, thank you.
I got more than my 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I promised Adam he could drink a beer while he was presenting, so.
So I didn't know I was presenting either.
Perfect. It's good to people I have to sneak people in here. That's all. Otherwise they stay away.
How do I move?
Did you just hit the arrows?
Well, I didn't know I was presenting, so I'm gonna mainly leave it to questions. But when we moved here, for whatever reason, the outfeed table shrunk a little bit for the table saw in the wood shop. So like now it's like an inch lower than it should be. So we had to fix that, make a new one. We had all this wood that was taking up space from the Madison Municipal Building. We took all this oak trim out of there that was kind of ugly and probably shouldn't be used as trim anymore. So we made it into this table.
So that table is thousands of pieces of really small trim. Like they're really little tiny pieces of oak that are all glued together into bigger squares of oak that are then glued together with other species of wood.
Yeah, the top is all leftover stuff. The walnut I had left over from a countertop I made for a friend of mine, and the Duke is left over from a cutting board. But the majority of it is from the city, so you can thank them.
Majority of the weight is wood.
I don't know. Majority of it is a fair amount of wood in there.
It's mostly wood.
So this, up on the screen here, the picture is the lower cabin face that this sits on top of. And so it's made out of ash, and rather than painting it, Adam dyed it.
I don't know what pictures he had.
That's it. Those are the 3 pictures you get.
I thought you had like multiple.
If I give you
Alright,
too
he
many
told me
options.
last night he had more pictures, so. It's a plywood cabinet, birch plywood cabinet that's stained red with an ash face frame. And I'll second the Amazon thing. I wouldn't recommend them. I ordered legs off Amazon because I thought I would get them fast with Prime and all that. Took way too long. So, any questions?
What were they marketed as? They were 8,000 pound, super heavy, giant caster legs, and they're like regular size.
Well, we have to put 8,000 pounds on.
We can do that if you want to test it. Let's set the Bobcat on top of it, see if it holds up.
Prepare to
Is
be
that how much
disappointed.
it weighs?
Bobcat's 3,000 pounds. We'll have to do the Bobcat and the scissor lift. You do the pair of them, that'll do it. It'll be 6.
If you can set them on there gently, I think it'll
Fork looks good for it. How are you going to finish the top? What are you going to do next?
work. Sanding. Sanding.
Are you
So
gonna
if anyone
oil it
wants
though,
to
or-
sit around with the sander for a while and sand out some marks.
Adam's not the best marketer. We have a fancy 5-inch or 6-inch Festool sander. It's like the primo sander, the
German,
fanciest one you can
Marcus
buy.
knows what we're talking about.
You can give it a shot. You can try it out, see if it's awesome or not. And then, but are you gonna oil it though, or are you gonna varnish it, or what's
like oil, urethane, clear.
How'd you decide on where to put the walnut in the produce?
I was shooting for a little bit of symmetry and the easiest glue up possible, and I had a very limited amount of wood, so that's kind of what worked.
Did you flatten it on the cabin leather?
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend it. That was probably one of the worst parts of this project.
Not gluing together thousands of pieces of wood, that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Why was that the worst?
The run out isn't worth it.
The second.
Don't try and it may be because the router was loose or something and the straps weren't tightened.
The
but
project-
that shouldn't have been an issue. Period.
The project we did after this, we found out that the hose clamps holding the router head on were completely
Right.
loose.
So
There's
that
roughly
gives you an
inch.
idea right there. There's hose clamps holding the router.
Worked great after we fixed it. We'll have to make another
Yeah,
tabletop
it
and
worked
find out.
great.
Yeah, Jim. Yeah.
Speaking of glue, will the oil finish be compatible with glue for when people glue things up on the outfeed table? Is that somewhere?
Absolutely.
But the sanders.
Yeah, exactly.
The reason I think I'm gonna finish it with the oil is because you can wipe on a new coat anytime and you're kind of refreshed.
Any other questions? Mark?
Why make such a nice outfeed table?
So maybe the rest of the building will look even nicer.
Sean, I think that's a shot across the bow on the window trim.
It's almost grinding.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Actually, Adrian, you got something for that? Alright, Adrian, you're up. Anybody else besides Adrian? And Marcus has got a round 2 on programming. You better have cookies to hand out or something now. It's
gonna be really boring.
Hello, my name is Adrian. Well, I am Sector 67 member. I was working in a company and that was very eco-friendly, but then a lot of people were starting to ask me about making signs. So I decided to create a different company, and it's named Token. So I'm going to show now what I'm making in this new company with signs. So somebody sent Chris an email asking for a phone charging station, and he passed it to me. It was for the Forward Madison soccer team, and the MGNE was giving the money to make a phone charging station. So they asked me to do some design. So I was thinking to combine the flamingo with the lightning. I don't know how to say very well this lightning, so, but you see. I was trying to combine these two. So I was thinking in this form as like some more three-dimensional. I gave them this presentation about, I was thinking this face to make a face of a wireless charging station, and in this face to put some screen, to put the USB and the cables, but they didn't like it. It always happens. So they sent me this. They said, we really like this. So for me it was easy. So I was spending a lot of time with emails, and English is my second language, so let's go with this idea. But I presented them this version. But also they didn't like it, they wanted more colors, and I was playing with a lot of colors, and I came with this idea. They wanted to have the shape of the logo, they wanted the top of the shape of the logo. And I showed this to Chris, and he told me it was a little bit funny. And he was right. And so I changed it. So and then I asked Chris. I heard Adam was making room using materials. So I saw a bunch of screens. I asked Chris if you have some extra screens, and I started to recycle the screens, and I spent a lot of time trying to make an extension of the cable to control from the distance. Then I use a media player. I don't recommend this because it was working very well for 1 week, and then I needed to replace it. Then now they are working, the other ones, but I will tell you later if they work or not. So now they are working.
Amazon?
Amazon.
Yes. Prime. So and then once I had the dimensions of the screen, I started to create the body, and I was starting to play with this material that I saw somebody was doing very cool stuff, and then I bought this material. This used in the sign industry a lot, but I was starting to do some testing and it didn't work, so I jumped to steel. Yeah. So I sent these bodies to a steel shop, and they did this for me. then I did the bases. I cut the holes with the plasma cutter my first time. I covered the holes just for the cables so they don't get messed up. Then I send it to paint with powder coat. I create these shells with PVC foam, so the wireless chargers can charge the phone, because I think you're not able to put the wireless phone charging chargers through metal. So then here is, you can see the bar. I use a bunch of magnets in this time just to, because I was thinking in the process. I didn't think all at once, and I didn't know how it was going to work. So I was improvising a lot. So I didn't, once this was painted, I wasn't able to make any anchors. So I used some silicone and magnets and zip ties. It's not very elegant, but it works very well. Then I create the cavities for the chargers. I create the shelves with some graphics, and you can see here, this is the access panel for all the electronics. And that took a lot of time, but now it's done. I'm happy with that.
Any questions?
Where are these going to be installed?
They are at the Stevens, the soccer stadium. Yeah.
So they're permanent install?
Yeah. So.
Are they outside?
Yes. Well, it's almost all waterproof. Just the access panel is not very waterproof, but it's all very grounded. So they left this in the snow, and it was no. The idea is, I told them it's for inside or it's for outside, but no with water. But it's very safe. But
did you pay any attention to cooling or airflow for like the electronics inside?
no.
Okay.
No, because I was thinking in the water, the access panel is the only place where some air can go through, but it's in the bottom. So I imagine the heat. So it's.
We're gonna find out, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I have more screens, it's okay.
They were free.
Who did the metal?
Well, I found a place. It's a Hoffman manufacturer. It was like $500 to paint 4 bodies, and they powder coated it for me for free.
Their logo? Or?
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes from here. Yeah. I don't remember exactly the town, but yeah, it's very close. And yeah, they have machine to bend, to powder. They powder coated the bending, and they laser cut it. And they are fast.
Yeah, it was actually about shaping the composite material. Yeah, what you just answered, right?
No, I was talking about the metal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I'm curious about the composite material, like, is that over there, or what you passed around?
Yes.
So did you have to shape that at all?
Well, you CNC or with a router, you make a groove, and then you bend it by hand. Yeah, it's very easy.
But you didn't end up using the diamond, right?
What?
You ended up using a regular steel?
No, because was very wobbly, and there is a lot of different kinds of Dibond. There's the 3 millimeter, 6 millimeter, different thickness, different brands. So I know more still, and yeah, I didn't want to try all the universe of Dibond, and I don't like much plastic, so I quit for that route very fast. Yeah.
Any other questions?
What was the shelf there?
PVC.
Big plastic.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if anybody did want to try that ACM material, would you know where they could get some?
Try what?
The Dibond.
The Dibond?
Oh yeah, I have 2 extra sheets there. Yeah. I bought 4, but I already used 2, so I am using them very fast in another project. But yeah, if somebody wants to try with the Dibond, I can give you a piece.
Were you able to make your deadline? I know you were pressing back there for a while.
Yes, I was working 3 nights here, very straight, and I finished. But next morning I'm going to show you another project. I didn't have time today to put it together, but
Yeah, if you go to the soccer games at Bree Stevens, you can see and you can play with these. Just don't open the access panel and let me water in there. Any other questions?
So pretty happy with the wireless charging units today?
yes.
Did you get those on Amazon?
Yes.
Thanks, Adrian.
Right. Hello, my name is Heather. I'm Chris's wife. So I have my little living room set up over here. That's normally where I hang out during the winter. But then during the summer, I love to play out in the dirt. It's like mental health therapy, but then also Chris and I have a lot of food intolerances, so I like to grow a lot of our food, and we're able to preserve it and eat fresh vegetables all year long. And so if I had my dream, we'd like totally tarp off this area. I have a big greenhouse, but I have all my seedlings growing over here on this table. And if you've been to a past meeting, you've probably heard me rant about the garden out front and how we've been working with the city about trying to have a terrace garden again this year. And so we're about 95% to making that happen. But one thing that we've also signed up for is to have a free little garden. So it's kind of like the free little library, but instead of having a box full of books, we'll have garden produce from the garden available for people to harvest and take what they need to be able to bring home and enjoy. And so this is actually a national project that's going on, and we are the second one in the state of Wisconsin, right?
First one. Oh, second one in the state of Wisconsin.
We're the first one in Madison. So there's a website you can go to, and if you have a terrace garden or extra produce at home, you can also sign up to be a free little garden so that you can support locally grown agriculture within our communities and be able to provide produce to our neighbors as well. So that's all I got. I'm going to pull an Adam. Any questions? Yeah?
What 5% do you need left of the terrace garden?
The city screwed up the paperwork. It's supposed to get approved on the 30th of last month, but it's going to go to council on the 16th this month.
And that's for the whole greenhouse thing you're talking about?
Well, there's a few things in flight, but the principal one is it'll make legal the entire city to have any raised bed garden in the terrace. So Sean, you'll be legal again. If you're past 30 years, you haven't been legal, you'll be doing it now.
Well, it did pass.
It's in various stages of passing. So it moves through different meetings and a bunch of public agendas, and now it has to go back to the council, to the common council to be approved. So they screwed up for the 30th. It's now on the 16th.
So to date, if you have a terrace garden at your house, you are actually in violation of city. A raised terrace garden, you're actually in violation of city rules. Who knew? We now know. And Chris has been working really really hard with the city for the past 9 months to get it reapproved and make sure that it's available for people to be able to do this.
Does this require a permit or anything?
Nope, it'll be free to have anybody have a raised bed garden again on that terrace. And then if they approved a few other things that made it a lot more flexible.
Was that known as the Sector 67 terrace rule?
I asked if they needed that name for the amendment, but they didn't. So they could call it the Sector 67 pain in the ass of the ordinance. So we got a lot of meetings. Oh boy, let's take Jim and Mark simultaneous.
And then Aaron.
Ready, set, go.
Will they expunge the record of all the previous scofflaws who had?
They should, you know, that's a good point. We should really bring that up, see if they'll refund all the fines.
Yeah.
Mark?
By default, is anything, and I think we talked about this a little bit, by default, is anything grown in the terrace by default public?
It is, yeah. Anything grown in the terrace is by default public property. So if you put a fruit tree in the terrace, which is a whole other city gamut, you by definition are allowing anybody to take the fruit from it. Same with gardens or anything else.
Aaron?
So it doesn't sound like we're getting an orange tree anytime soon, huh?
Not getting an orange tree, we could plant it on our property.
Alright, so basically what you're saying is that if we see that posted outside the garden anywhere, somebody else is rolling the stuff, we can just take it?
So everybody gets to make up their own rules, which is, you know me, how much I'm gonna love this,
Oh,
because I get to make the
great.
rules.
Who wants to route that sign out?
Yeah, exactly. Make a few of those.
So people run their gardens very differently. Some of them have like literally they've made signs that say, here's the bags, here's the scissors, with signs next to the plants of this is when it's okay to pick these, this is when you should leave them alone. To just like, it's open, come and take whatever you want as much as you want. So people make up what they consider is acceptable for their gardens. And then they range, like I'm part of the Facebook community now, for the Free Little Gardens, as far as what's considered a garden, and well, that's interesting too.
Is there a sign where we can rate the fruit too?
Ooh.
Doesn't exist yet, maybe next time.
Maybe next year. But we also, so part of this was also, Sector was awarded a grant from the Sassy Community Foundation, the Neighborhood Foundation, to be able to rebuild the garden and be able to buy some of the produce that we'll be growing and then materials to help sustain the garden. So, and then part of what we had submitted in that grant proposal was that we're growing, not things that you would like different varieties of things that you would traditionally find at the grocery store, to help be able to make people more aware to other options and also try new types of vegetables that you might not try if you do, like purple carrots. Some people think purple carrots are the craziest thing in the world. And so it's an opportunity to get people to try new foods as well.
You need the soil turned over, you can put a sign that says free parsnip to walk out of there.
Well, so as part of the average community garden, twice a year in the fall we did basically set up a stand at the Fitness Center food pantry and invite people to bring. But it's an interesting idea to spread that out to the large community, not just the apple gardens. But, so it's kind of like the free little garden, but everyone puts a little bit in. It's pretty impressive. I mean, it's enough, and then it's like it's fresh produce for whoever's coming to thank you.
So yeah, the other one is in Oregon. And she's actually already reached out to me saying she'd love for me to come and see her garden, and she can't wait till ours is put back in so she can come and see ours. Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'd just like to share, I've been programming for a long time, and I'd like to share how my tool chain looks like. So the actual camera is Raspberry Pi based. Let's see. This may actually work.
I told Marcus as part of his mandatory software demonstration, his thing would have to fail to work. That's part of the requirement, so. Everybody know what a Raspberry Pi is? A little single board computer. It's a Linux box.
Who doesn't know what a Raspberry Pi is? We're not talking about the thing you can eat. Anybody? Okay, so I am mostly programming in C++, and it is a little bit of a learning curve there. For example, C++ does not have, by default, it doesn't come with anything graphical. So the only thing actually that comes with the language is you can put out characters to a console. So the first thing I had to do was create some sort of library that I can actually draw on the screen. Video, all the various controls. And the way I develop is, so what you see here is Visual Studio. It's a Microsoft tool. The laptop is running Windows. And so I can edit all the source code that ends up on the Raspberry Pi on my Windows machine. And you know, when I'm ready to actually try it out, I can just press a little triangle up here. Now, what it does behind the scenes is it will actually copy the source code onto the Raspberry Pi remotely. Then it will remotely invoke the compiler that runs on the Raspberry Pi and creates the executable. And the screen has changed, yeah. So this is like a little sample app that shows, you know, it basically tests a few things that I needed for the recorder. And what it does is, maybe hard to see, you know, I can touch this and it will tell you I touched it, and it'll tell you what the coordinates are where you have touched the screen. So, and this is the code that actually runs right now. And I can actually demonstrate this by putting a breakpoint here.
So the reason this is special is he's using a Windows computer and a Windows development environment to put code on the Raspberry Pi without having to code on the Raspberry Pi and making it easier to transfer and execute the code and compile the code. It's my understanding, anyways, as a mechanical engineer.
Right, right. You know, the thing is, I live so much in this stuff that, you know, I keep forgetting that yeah, I probably should explain what's going on here. You know, if anybody does mobile development, like for example for the iPhone, you actually don't develop on the iPhone. What you do is you develop on your Mac, and then you transfer whatever you have developed, the app, onto the phone, and then it runs there. With the Raspberry Pi, you could actually use the Raspberry Pi to directly develop on it. But it is somewhat painful and somewhat slow. And Microsoft actually makes a free plugin that allows you to use their toolchain on Windows, and it automatically you know, does a lot of things for you. For example, you can step through the source code and see what's going on. You can examine the variables, and it does a flyby. It makes it actually, at least for me, because I'm used to Visual Studio, it makes it a very productive experience. You know, if you ever use a Raspberry Pi and spin it up as a graphical user interface, it is slow and it takes a long time. So, you know, if you go down the route, trying out some C++, I highly recommend Visual Studio by Microsoft, and you know, using this toolchain. You got a question?
Do they have like an emulator too that you can run, that you just run it off your laptop to run native output?
I don't think there's an emulator. So, and it also doesn't cross-compile. Cross-compile usually means you compile it, so if you do mobile development on iOS, for example, you actually compile the executable on your Mac, and you literally copy the executable. In this scenario, you actually copy the source code to the Raspberry Pi, and then run the compiler remotely on the Raspberry Pi. You can also cross-compile, but it takes a little more effort setting this up. This thing, you can get up and running in minutes. There's a little sample application out there that does that. So it does take away a little bit of the learning curve of, oh, I gotta learn Linux. I gotta learn how, all these commands work. Actually, you don't. If you set this thing up and then put the, username, password in there, you're up and running in a very short time.
Do you have to flash a special OS or set up a kernel or something on the Raspberry Pi?
No, it's all stock. So the only thing you got to do is enable SSH, so the secure shell. And that's something that's by default off. Otherwise, it's a stock Raspberry and distribution.
So is the debugger debugging live on the Pi? It's like a remote debugger?
Yeah.
So it's executing on the Pi, but when it hits a breakpoint, it shows you where you are back on the
Yeah, it's hard to see, but up there it says message 52 or 59.2 FPS, frames per second. That's what's up on the screen, so it's showing, it's rendering because of the breakpoint where that would be.
So you can inspect variables, do all sorts. It's a very good question. So what's running there is the GNU debugger, and it comes, for the last 30 years with a remote interface. And finally, Microsoft actually wrote a plugin for Visual Studio that talks the very same API to the remote debugger.
Another question?
Can you do it in Python?
No, actually, Visual Studio bear with me.
What about C#? Visual Studio? Probably not.
Probably, I don't know what compiler would you use on
you have to use Mono or something.
Yeah.
I'm just asking bad questions. Okay, that's good.
Any other questions? Alright. Thank you, Marcus. And Marcus will have this up if you guys want to check it out afterwards. You can take a look at it and see it works. So I think that's it for people presenting, right? Good. Did I miss anything? Alright. We'll just go around. You can say who you are and what you're interested in or why you're here or otherwise, and we'll go from there. Just got it.
I'm here because I got asked to present.
Sounds terrible. Mark?
I'm Mark. I hang out here and love the coffee drives when I'm not here.
I'm George. I live in the machine shop.
I'm Brian Engelhardt. I just moved here from Knoxville, and I just want to see what's happening in the city. Maker.
I'm young. I'm happy because I live here. I'm interested in everything. But my best interest is I want to use 3D printers to prototyping my product.
I'm Kyle. I'm an electrical engineer. I've been working on some big LED boards.
Brian, member here and software engineer of sorts.
I'm Davey. I want to use this moment to give you a PSA that I think everybody that is getting into tutoring should know. And that's in Detroit, I used a tooth saw blade. I don't know how to use this. I don't know the right terminology. I do metalworking randomly, and I have used hundreds of abrasive wheels that throw nasty gases and shrapnel all over my garage. And Chris has these awesome saws that we use all weekend to cut actual metal with a tooth saw blade, and it changed my whole life. I went home and I tooled up and I bought like a bunch of these. So if you ever have any tools that cut metal, get a tooth saw blade. You only need to buy one.
That's specific for cutting. It's a
Do
ferrous
get,
material.
yeah, like there's steel and there's aluminum, and like I bought the steel stuff because I do steel and every now and again stainless
Here you
steel.
go, Davey. I'm counting on you can do the Milwaukee PSA if you want.
Yeah, and these tools are super awesome. They're somewhere around $9,000 a piece, but we use these things all day to cut. I got a 4-year-old. This is really not
But notice
Show them the most important part of that tool.
Oh yeah, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know why, this is like the dirty secret in hobbyists that nobody talks about, but like a tooth saw blade, it's a clear cut, I don't have to have a breather filter on. No, this is for aluminum.
Huh? You can cut 6 yeah. You can't do that with backwards.
Yeah, because I've got a, Harbor Freight top saw, and it's got a 10-inch abrasive wheel, and it's akin to a hacksaw. You put it about where you want it, it cuts about straight, and you hope for the best. And when I got my Diablo blade, it cut just a ball smooth finish. Sorry.
My name's Bob, and I've been here about a decade. I talked to you about 6 years ago about some ideas I had. You said, oh, you gotta use the strawberry thing. And it's like, I guess that's the software here that we're discussing, right? And so anyway, yeah, I've done some coding, Flash and animation and stuff like that. I learned in school, but I've done just about everything on a building, from concrete to roofing houses, waterproofing, to neon lights, to engineering neon parts and engineering neon equipment. We sold neon equipment to the biggest companies in the country. What else? I invent and engineer things. I was a street artist in California with an invention that I had here. And lo and behold, somebody else had already done it back in 1939 at the World's Fair. Made these spirals and sold those for 20 years in California. There's about 150 of them that I haven't ever released. A lot of different things that I think about. I invented something today to put a post-it on, and you can actually put post-its on 4 or 50 a minute. It was just out of something to make out of scrap, something that normally you would throw away. But I just thought about bending something up a little. In 1 minute, I made up this little prototype, and I got a picture on my phone. So I think of things that would cost $20 billion to make, and things that cost nothing to make.
My name's Scott. I'm a member here of various interests. Lately, I've been working in the metal shop, and my older son working on insulation floor work.
Sean, I've been playing with 3D cutting and fusion techniques, and just about ready to make it cut again.
My name is CJ, and I enjoy welding. I'm actually about to graduate from ATC in about 3 days or so. And so when I come around, I thought I'd be
Hi, I'm Rahul. I'm not a member, but I was looking to join it, and I work in marketing consulting by profession, but I like to tinker around, and so I'm mostly interested in Arduino and metalworking stuff, and just kind of want to see what you guys are doing here.
I'm Kara. I just live in the neighborhood and came to see what goes on here.
I'm Pete. I just moved here from Richmond, Virginia, and just came to check things out because I like making things physically and digitally. Just came to check it out.
Jay, I just came to see the presentation.
I'm Nick. I'm into bikes and planes. I'm interested in a lot of things, not very good at any of them. I've left myself a lot of them. It's a good place to do it.
I'm Aaron. I do all kinds of weird projects and props and 3D printing, and right now I'm building 40 3D printers or 6, I'm not sure.
Sure. I'm Dave, daughter Lydia, from East Point. Just came to check it out this year. Make yourself. Check for it out.
I'm copy post, mostly software. Sometimes I get to interface with hardware, and big fan of Python.
I'm Kevin, just working, I'm not a member here, working on a 4-cylinder motor that I'm trying to get electronics switched on it. It's not gas, and just trying to get more electronics. I tried Arduino, but it didn't work.
I'm Lima, I'm a member of the Order of Arts and Engineering, which is a project we're involved with here, and we'll be building a platform on a hill, and then after that, the platform gets
I'm Heather. Loving patient
The understanding definitely has to go.
Charlie of Industrial Design. Occasionally we get, I'm Brandon, I'm just a groupie.
Jeremy, you know,
I'm Brian, I'm an engineer that Chris kidnapped off the street and I'll escape as soon as I get this electronic fetish thingy off my ankle.
Wish, Brian. Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. If you want, if you come up here by this table, I can give you a quick show around and show what's here. Otherwise, you're welcome to stick around and quiz Marcus on all the ways to make C++ on a Raspberry Pi. Thanks, everybody.